So I think that there's a bit of a perfect storm with this market disruption at the moment.
There's a lot of things going on in behind the scenes with building and construction and utilizing wood in different capacities that people are not even aware of.
When there is adversity, there's equal opportunity.
Will we survive? Yes, we will. Will we find new opportunities? Indeed, we will.
I'm Todd Burgess. I'm the Executive Director of Forest Nova Scotia, and you are listening to Forestry Uncut. Welcome again, dear listeners, to our final podcast of 2025 before Christmas, where we have two well-respected guests today. First off, we have Kevin Merriam. He is the Executive Director of the Maritime Lumber Bureau, and he is a well-respected individual in the forestry and wood processing sector here in Atlantic Canada. Also with us is Patrick Crabbe, the CEO of the Mass Timber Company, who first started his company in 2020 and will be developing it into the future. So welcome, Patrick and Kevin. And we're going to start with Kevin. And if you could, I'd like to learn a little bit about your history, where you came from, what you do now with the Maritime Lumber Bureau, and what that organization's all about, and about you too.
So I guess a little bit about my history. I've been at the Maritime Lumber Bureau now for 27 years. I started way back. I was always kind of an outdoor type person anyway, so forestry was attractive to me. Started out at actually community college in forestry resources, and that was kind of a precursor to me wanting to go to the forest ranger school in Fredericton, New Brunswick.
So you went to the community college in Nova Scotia?
I did, in Spring Hill, actually.
Okay.
And graduated from that course, and I loved it. And it was couldn't say enough good about it. And it served as a really good precursor to me to go to the Forest Ranger School, and it gave me a lot of really good background information for me to go. Ranger School, as everybody who's ever went to Ranger School, is not an easy, or never was an easy course, and the more information that you have going in there, the better off I think your chances of graduating would be.
Okay. So what took you to the Maritime Lumber Bureau? Job opened up, you applied for it?
I did, yeah. So there was a job opening for a field inspector. So somebody who would go to the sawmills, check their product quality control, check their grade stamp production, check their processes of what they're doing for the phytosanitary control of their wood products and all that type of thing. So I managed to get that job. So I worked as a field inspector for the first 13 years of my career.
Okay. And then you moved to the executive director after 13 years?
No, I didn't. I moved to the manager and chief inspector of the quality control department for a couple of years. And then just after that, I had the opportunity to take on the challenge of being the executive director. So I've been doing that now for almost 10 years.
We're going to turn our attention to Patrick. Can you give me a little bit of history, Patrick, about your experience with forestry, where you come from, and how you came to be the CEO of the Mass Timber Company?
Well, Todd, my career started having my diapers changed in the sawdust pile. So
Okay.
We had a family business that was second generation. We were headquartered in St. Stephen, New Brunswick, and owned 6 sawmills throughout New Brunswick and into parts of Maine. Complemented with that sawmilling base, we had a large manufacturing facility where we added as much value as possible to the sawmilling products, so fully integrated. That was always my father's ethos, Stephen Crabbe, where it was just about finding what is that highest value product that can serve that highest value market, and use, every piece of fiber through the entire process along the way. So we were actually a custom cedar fence manufacturer, and Eastern White Cedar is kind of a revered product for that type of use. You didn't necessarily need to dry the material to do that. You could use green material from the sawmills, and there's a very robust market for custom cedar fencing in the Northeast USA. So we did like Bill Clinton's home and Harvard University. and a lot of pretty high-profile projects through that. And that kind of led through the years to get into other types of manufacturing. We did non-structural glue lam, kind of what we're doing today, but at a very small scale. That required finger jointing. We also had a vinyl fencing line where we did some light extrusions and sonic welding and various things, and aluminum fencing.
I'm learning a ton here.
And we had our own trucking and distribution group as well. And on top of all of that, my father spent quite a bit of time developing a fire log to use from the sawmill residuals, where you're not adding any adhesives or binders. You're simply just kind of denaturing under the right pressure and temperature the biomass from the sawmilling process and compressing it into a log that is like the perfect leisure log for burning, that has no smokes, no sparks, and also for cooking. So that's kind of how that was where I grew up. And we had some challenges with the last downturn in the housing market in the U.S. economy in 2008.
Okay.
And that kind of led to our business, transforming and doing creative things, developing new markets in Canada, but wasn't enough to satisfy the creditors. And upon getting a loan guarantee from the province of New Brunswick, kind of our creditors at the time pulled the pin, and we went into receivership. And there's a long story in between that time, but I was applying to med school and going through that process, and I received a call from Diana Blinkhorn, who was the former executive director of the Maritime Lumber Bureau, and asked me to come on and join the WoodWORKS team. And that's really where I had my introduction to mass timber. And I'll never forget the day Kevin Merriam and Ed McCauley interviewed me and hired me to be the project director for Atlantic WoodWORKS. So over the years, I've always worked with Kevin, and Kevin was my boss for a couple years as well. So it's nice to see things always kind of stay close to home and in full circle.
Well, that's okay. So that's interesting. Now, so you've got some experience in the solid wood market, using low-grade wood. Then you moved to the Maritime Lumber Bureau. So did you just jump ship and then say, I'm going to start my own company?
Yeah. So it's, again, I'll be brief with this, but it was through developing markets, domestic markets for wood products was kind of the goal of the WoodWORKS group. So there are WoodWORKS divisions all across Canada, and the Atlantic one kind of completed that umbrella across Canada. It was kind of one of the later ones to happen, and that's really where we got the introduction into mass timber and the momentum that mass timber had in other parts of Canada, where we were kind of on the front end with commissioning a lot of different cost studies and working with the codes and standards group at Canadian Wood Council to help expedite a lot of the building code changes so we could get more softwood lumber into mid-rise buildings. So that's with 6 stories that happened in the 2015 National Building Code. So really, it was that experience that was the ground level of education and helped, develop all the relationships with the developers, architects, engineers, regulators to then allow me to get a job at Bird Construction, where I developed the Mass Timber Center of Excellence there, and from there realized, why do we not have any manufacturing here in the East?
You incorporated in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So continue on the story. Then where are we at now?
So where we are at now is roughly $5.8 million has been invested and spent in the mass timber company to date. We are at the process now where we're hoping to actually clear land to kind of start the site development process in early January. So things are very close, and I look forward to potentially coming back on the podcast once a lot of these major capitalization events are finalized and providing more details.
At that point, let's say you're up and running, but that's your idea, is to service contractors doing developments, or?
So this is what's really exciting about what mass timber can provide to the marketplace here, is that we have the ability to actually move from tree to city. So it's a fully integrated circular economic approach that will move from the roundwood on a woodlot, either owned by our sawmill partners or harvested on private land, that will, run through their sawmills into our facility to be manufactured in a product and go into a development in Nova Scotia. So what that means is we are going to be working directly with developers, architects, engineers. The government has passed a wood first policy here in the province of Nova Scotia as of April of this year. And that means that all public buildings have to prioritize the design or specification of mass timber.
They have to prioritize it or just consider it?
Consider, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, consider. There's different language out there, but yes, it is that the individuals within different departments are now really having to give it a strong validation at the start of the design as well as the costing through the project.
Okay.
So, and again, I probably should have said this when you're like, what's the state of the mass timber company now, is that we are now in the market. So we have a team of engineers, we have myself, we have my founding partners, and we are out there in very much a soft approach until some of the other partnerships and capitalization agreements are finalized. But we are servicing developers and various groups right now with formal bids and in very creative material procurement supply until we're up and running to supply from our own factory.
So they could call Patrick and say, hey, I need these.
Absolutely.
And you can put a price in and say it'll cost you this.
Exactly, yes. Generally, we want to be involved early in the design process because there are creative ways to approach mass timber design that make it more cost effective. So the earlier that we are involved in those conversations, we can set the project up for success and then guide the engineering and architecture teams to incorporate those strategies and then ultimately go to market for the most competitive supply at this time.
The feeling I'm getting here, and I'm picturing our listeners listening at home or driving in their car listening to this podcast, and they're thinking, they have no idea all this stuff goes on.
Mm-hmm.
They just think, I'm only getting this much for my stumpage, or why am I only getting paid this much to cut my wood? It seems like they got lots of logs in the sawmill. Why can't I get paid more? What's going on? So this is enlightening even to me, let alone the average person probably listening to our podcast right now. So let's dive into this a little bit further. So Kevin, where do you see the state of the sawmilling sector right now from your perspective?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think it's any secret that there's a fair amount of challenges right now with our sawmilling sector. We have always had what I would consider to be a good partnership and a good relationship with the United States. We've had export markets to a certain degree, but of course our largest trading partner by a long mile has been the United States. And so over the course of the past year, there's been a fair amount of challenges that we've had to look at and reassess how we're going to operate and how we're going to do things going forward. So, a large part of our export market has been the U.S. and, with Nova Scotia, even under what's called now a Section 232 tariff that's put on our Nova Scotia wood of 10%, that offers challenges. And outside of Nova Scotia, the other provinces in Canada have what's called a countervailing duty and an anti-dumping duty on top of that. And under the all others rate, that's 35.14 or something percent, and then you add the Section 232 tariff on that, and now you're at the plus side of 45%. So I don't know any company out there that has a strong margin of over 45% that they can afford to handily absorb 45% tariffs and duties and still make an easy go of it. It's not easy.
Right. So it sounds like that the Nova Scotia sawmilling sector, solid wood product sector, even in Atlantic Canada, is relying on the U.S. for sales to support the sector. And if that market goes away, was that the reason for starting the WoodWORKS program here in Atlantic Canada? Was that sort of the impetus?
You know, it was certainly something that was thought about a long time ago for utilizing our products in our own backyard. And I think this whole thing started in British Columbia a number of years before we ever even considered starting the WoodWORKS program in Atlantic Canada. It's a program of the Canadian Wood Council, and there are a number of different regions that have WoodWORKS programs across the country. BC was the first one to start it. I think Ontario followed suit, and then you have other ones, Saint-Gobain in Quebec and Alberta WoodWORKS, and then the Atlantic WoodWORKS came into fruition in 2011. And that's housed under the umbrella of the Maritime Lumber Bureau.
Okay. Patrick, you saw it, the need for why aren't we building more mass timber here in Atlantic Canada? You saw it through Kevin's program that he had. Why do you think it's taken so long?
So part of the reason why it was so exciting to, decide on the career shift to work within the WoodWORKS program is that having a strong market for value-added wood products is part of the diversification strategy, I think, for industry to develop a strong base for demand here domestically and ultimately add as much value as possible to the precious resources so that there is more margin built into the creativity and the engineering creativity behind what the purpose of that product is. So that really was what was inspiring to me, and ultimately how mass timber enters this equation is we did not think that the lumber basket in Atlantic Canada was strong enough to produce the components to manufacture glulam and CLT.
To say that again, you didn't think the lumber basket,
the spruce pine fir specifically,
Yes.
Was strong enough to be able to compete on the national and international level
okay,
with those other markets. So when you look at our lumber standards and engineering guidelines, there's a base strength that's carried for each species of dimension lumber, and Kevin is an absolute master at all of this, and can go into it a lot further. But part of the genesis and value proposition for developing a mass timber company was that we went to our sawmill investors, Elmsdale and Ledwidge Lumber, and we have hand graded and tested up to 1.2 million pieces to determine what is the actual strength profile of the wood basket that we are dealing with. And those findings itself, just through that grunt work and through support of our sawmill partners and the government, we found out that the actual strength values are about 20% to 25% higher than what's actually published. So in the softwood lumber industry and how it's used in conventional methods and walls and floors is that not every piece of wood is tested for their strength value. That's considered machine stress rated lumber. You have just pretty much a bell curve of all these testing agencies that continue to audit strength values and things, and it's the lower 5 percentile of that basket of strength between the species that's carried into that design value so that there's a safety factor and that, you're not overselling something that doesn't have the strength to support it. So really just through the whole effort, and with mass timber manufacturing, it's all about the exact and individual strength characteristics of each piece that fit properly into the right product to maximize that value.
Okay,
and that's what we found out as to why mass timber manufacturing is now feasible in Atlantic Canada.
Okay. There's a lot into that statement you just said right there, but very important, obviously. So with that testing, did you have an aha moment?
There's an analogy that was used. I'm not sure how many people enjoy this, but it's like we have found the gold, and now it's time to truly understand the value of that gold.
Okay. The Premier talks about maximizing our natural resources in Nova Scotia. I actually sit on the Premier's Natural Resource Summit Committee, and he's looking for ideas. And I feel like, from what I'm hearing, that we may be onto something. So let's talk a little bit further about some of the solid wood product developments in Atlantic Canada. Can you tell me a little bit about some of those companies, Kevin, and how maybe some of the work that you do fits into their development?
Under our WoodWORKS Atlantic program that we have right now, we deal with a whole number of different manufacturing companies, architects, engineers, developers, government, and that type of thing. And what we're seeing, and what we've got to understand is that we so far today we've talked a lot about mass timber, and it's an exciting component of where I think the future of building and construction is going to be in not only Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada, but straight across the country. But we've also have to remember that we still make 2x4s too, and our sawmilling sector still produces a commodity product that is certainly good for construction practices. It's good for manufacturing of single-family dwellings, but far beyond that too. So we have built into the code now up to 6-story mid-rise construction of stick frame, which is dimension lumber. And we have companies that are taking that concept and moving it even further forward now with the idea of panelized type systems where you're building wall panels and floor and ceiling panels and different types of building and construction methods in a controlled environment in a building where you have all of the experts. You have the plumbing, you have electricians, you have the carpenters and all of the key people that you need in order to build these components in a controlled building. And there's manufacturing companies that are doing this in our own backyard right now.
Now, I'm just thinking about our housing problem we have here, very specifically in Nova Scotia. So can it speed up that process of building?
Indeed, it can.
Can it make it cheaper?
It can. I don't have the exact numbers on what the differential would be if it was on-site construction versus either panelized or modular type building components. But let's talk wood in general and say that wood construction has proven itself to be a very cost-effective construction method, and it meets code.
Okay.
And so, we have, whether it's on-site construction, whether it's stick frame built, whether it's panelized or modular systems, or whether it's mass timber, depending on what that construction method is and what the application is, it's a cost-effective method and it meets code.
So if there's a contractor out there or a developer that is looking at putting in, say, a new subdivision,
if anybody's listening to this and they want to have a building or construction project that they're thinking about, and they want to look at ways to utilize wood in maybe a new type of way, certainly give us a call. We have a WoodWORKS Atlantic team and a technical team that's very capable. And if we don't have the answers, then we have people like Patrick who are very adept at discussing things with mass timber and other elements of wood as well as the Canadian Wood Council, who we can't forget has a team of structural engineers and experts who this is what they do day in and day out, and they deal with codes and standards work all of the time.
In, let's say, a community development or a residential area, say I'm building a house. Can I use mass timber in my house? Do I need to? Should I consider it?
The best way to answer that question is there's kind of two distinctions now that are really taking a lot of the airwaves for modern methods of construction. You have prefabricated solutions like Kevin had mentioned, and then you have volumetric modular solutions. So that's where even your toilet paper hangers are on the wall. Like it's almost pretty much a full plug-and-play system that's just kind of dropped inside and tied together with other types of buildings. On the modular side of things, there's a completely different value proposition than to a prefabricated solution, and this is where I'll let you know where mass timber comes in. Modular is not yet proven to be cost competitive versus like a prefab or a stick-built solution. However, it has a lot of advantages for getting heads and beds faster or addressing let's say, political promises around classroom capacities on site. That's why you're seeing a lot of these new buildings and schools go up, and then there's module units built around every perimeter on site. So it serves a need there for speed. Not necessarily the most cost-effective solution.
Okay.
Now, with prefabricated, when you're looking at housing developments specific to your question, really it's about what are my internal resources as a developer? Do I build this myself? Do I have the skills to do it? What are the trade markets out there like? There's not a lot of wood framing capacity in the market now, just with the explosion of single-family homes and a lot of multi-residential. So really, not having that trade capacity is causing people to look into how do I piece together components like through prefabricated wall panels or floor systems, prefabricated wall, exterior wall, or even sometimes interior, to circumnavigate a lot of the trade pressures that we're under to then build a cost-effective solution that meets my pro forma. And where mass timber comes into play right now today is that it can replace that of your engineered I-joists and your floor systems. So one great example of a project is the Crosswoods project in Cole Harbour that was built by the Rooted community development team. They're an incredible group, and we're already looking at other kind of more full mass timber solutions. But it was a wood frame prefabricated exterior wall. They had site built the wood frame partition walls, and then they flew in mass timber panels to act as the floor system. And the value proposition to that is you can sometimes minimize your thickness of the floor rather than using a deeper engineered I-joist. So therefore that saves on building envelope and different costs. You don't have to encapsulate it. It's a fully exposed system. So your structure becomes your architecture. And ultimately, you have then a diversified, higher value product that should be able to get you more rent.
So to put that in, so you can see the beauty of the wood in the building you're in.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the direction that we really want to go, and I think it's kind of been a bit of a misstep in how the mass timber market has been developed in Canada, is that specifically our governments that have put out demonstration programs or various things, they just want to show the innovation of it. They want to show the beauty of it. So it's been incorporated in a lot of higher value buildings to just demonstrate its capability regardless of the cost to kind of build consumer and public confidence. And we've kind of lost sight about how do we really now focus on getting it into more pragmatic uses, especially now that we're in a housing crisis. So the focus of the mass timber company and the direction that we want to move is we want to find ways to make it very comparable to stick built on site. And, you know, whether that be through fully prefabricated mass timber exterior wall, roof, floor systems, and everything that can just drop on site, and just how that compares to the trade dynamics today.
So I'm assuming we can build more buildings with wood if, you know, when your mass timber company gets rolling and starts producing. How close will we get to actually diverting some of that wood and using it ourselves? Can we come close?
So, Kevin, you know, maybe you can answer this, but what is the annual sawmilling capacity here in Nova Scotia from a board footage perspective? Is it around 450 million, 450 to 500 million board feet?
We'll say, I think that would be a fairly reasonable guess.
Mm-hmm. So
Yep.
That being confirmed, the mass timber company, kind of with our conservative production values, when we are at capacity, will be about 10% of the annual softwood lumber volume would run through to the mass timber company facility, and that would produce around 2.5 million square feet of incremental construction per year. So it does play a material impact on diversifying new markets for sawmill companies and to contribute to infrastructure backlog.
Okay, that puts things in perspective, but it actually probably gives more opportunity for margin. Just more companies keeping it local. They don't have to ship things everywhere, and we get more value per cubic meter of wood harvested.
7 to 20 times the value, actually, from
Is it
mastic.
20 times the value?
Yeah, for some of the higher quality glulam that will use the highest strength product of the wood basket.
Okay. Now, I've got a feeling there's a whole bunch of things in behind the background that has happened and will continue to happen, and we won't go there. But are there other companies that are coming to light, maybe that you would know, Kevin, because of the initiative that Patrick has brought forward? Like, I know of the company in Renton, East Cut.
East Cut, yep. They're actually quite impressive.
Yes.
You know, so
I need to get a tour of their mill. I haven't toured their facility.
and you should.
Yeah.
And so some of the neat things, you know, they've got an interesting business model where they have the East Cut manufacturing facility in Trenton. They have the Dora Construction Group and their development company, which falls under the Maclan group. So they have kind of a trifecta all under the same umbrella.
Okay. Are there other companies like East Cut that are doing similar things?
Yes, there are, and there's another company in Cape Breton that's doing some work in that type of a capacity, doing panelized type systems as well. And there's other groups throughout Atlantic Canada that are doing much the same thing. Atlas just opened up a brand new facility in just outside of Lower Sackville, I believe, and they're doing some panelized systems there. There's a very active wood truss manufacturing capacity in Atlantic Canada. There's a lot. So I mean, there's a lot of things going on in behind the scenes with building and construction and utilizing wood in different capacities that people are not even aware of.
So I hear of some of these things,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel inspired.
Yeah.
So I walk around, my chin is high, and I'm smiling, and then someone comes into my office, and they're grumpy because forestry isn't right now. It's in hard shape.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see that, Kevin?
Well, we have challenges for sure, you know, but when you're forced to face challenges, you're also forced to face opportunity. And I think what comes out of that is that we look for ways in order to stay viable, which I can say for a fact that we have a long-standing industry in this region, which has been I would consider one of the backbones of the economy for a long time in Nova Scotia and also Atlantic Canada as a whole. And we didn't get here by being fly-by-night operations. We didn't get here by not considering the future of the sector. We didn't get here by producing products and marketing those products based on a 5-year outlook. We based that and forestry management and everything else that goes along with it in a long-term type of a management practice, and that goes for the manufacturing and sawmilling sector as well. So will we survive? Yes, we will. Will we find new opportunities? Indeed, we will. And that comes from domestic utilization, new opportunities, new technologies, and also some new export development opportunities as well that we're working on.
Okay.
Kevin said it best, is that when there is adversity, there's equal opportunity. And there is no surprise. We've been in this situation with, government changes in the U.S. and having market challenges due to, the mortgage housing crisis and so on in the U.S. So it is just interesting how we continue to seek for government help or find ways to weather the storm to then just proceed to go back to doing the same thing and pushing that easy button. So I think now it really is exciting to see our nation and even provinces look at more, how can we do things with what we have here in our region? So I think that there's a bit of a perfect storm with this market disruption at the moment. Not only is Kevin, seeking new markets abroad for softwood lumber materials, but from the value-added side, and even the design and construction teams and agencies that are pursuing a lot of this public work, generally people are always looking outside into, parts of the U.S. or bigger companies that can provide their expertise because, that seems to be the lens at which, people will evaluate the competitiveness of teams and the experience, but we have everything here. And that is what excites me with these recent challenges is we are truly looking at circular economic solutions here in Nova Scotia and awarding the teams that are paying the taxes here, that are investing, in their businesses here, and obviously human capital.
We have a domestic opportunity here. The talk of the town and the government now is, of course, affordable housing. We have an opportunity to be able to work much closer with our government in the forestry sector in order to provide solutions for our built environment, which we talked about earlier as having affordable solutions, which I think the forestry sector and our manufacturing capacity can help provide. We have to maintain an open dialogue, group meetings that involves not only government, but government and industry sitting around the table together and talking about how we can provide solutions to Canadians, because there is a real need for affordable housing in this country, and we have the capacity to do it. So why are we not putting this on a fast track to get this done?
Okay. So you say government and industry, so I can picture industry people. When you say government, who do you mean? Do you mean MLAs, ministers? Do you mean federal government, municipalities, or sort of one person from each? Or what do you mean by government?
Why could we not incorporate all of the above? It starts at the municipal level, and then it goes to the provincial level, and then into the federal level. I think all levels of government are talking about affordable housing solutions and how we can overcome some of the challenges we have in our own country. And I think everybody understands that the forestry sector in this country is an integral part of our economy as well. So we know that we can help provide some solutions, and I think that we all need to sit together and talk about what those solutions are going to be and how we can assist each other in making sure that they come to fruition.
I can feel a meeting coming up.
I hope so. We're ready.
Good.
Let's get to it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. If you're listening to the podcast, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. We would love for you to subscribe, like, and share it with people that maybe you know or other people in the sector. If you want to learn more about Forest Nova Scotia, the organization that I work for, you can go to forestns.ca. That's our website. You can click on there, listen to our podcast, and find out more information about forestry and the forest sector in Nova Scotia.